Hi, I'm Melanie from Parenting High Schoolers, and I'm here today to talk to you about helping your teen, high school, middle school, high schooler, or even college kid be more successful in school. There's some really simple tips that I'm going to share that will make their life so much simpler and actually, in the long run, your life as a mom. So, hi again, I'm Melanie from Parenting High Schoolers, and I hop on YouTube every week and talk about tips and tricks to help parent teens. I was a middle school, elementary, and preschool teacher for over 20 years now, and I have all kinds of strategies that will help you as you parent your teen and for school success. So today we're going to talk about school success. There's 5 things that our kids could do to help themselves stay organized from the get-go. We're mid-semester right now, so it's not too late to restructure their lives academically. But at the very least, they could get started for next semester doing all of these things and get off on the right foot. Number 1. Take the syllabus, and if you're in the middle of the semester and you're struggling, your teen is struggling, take that syllabus for each class and have a school calendar, whether it's a desk calendar or just a flip calendar, and write down all the important dates for the rest of the semester. Now, if you're at the beginning of the semester, you're a step ahead. So you would do this for every quiz, every paper that is due, every test. And I would also write down, for instance, the final, whenever that is in December or May or April or whatever the end of the semester is for you. Is it cumulative? So if it is cumulative, then your child needs to keep all of their papers. So that's number 1. Write down all the dates for things that are due coming up. Quizzes, papers, and projects and tests. And then after that, they need to get their phone because they have these phones, so let's use them. That is an excellent tool for organization. So they need to get into their calendar app and do the same thing that they just did on paper. They need to set up a reminder that test next week in English. What I have my sons do is a week away from whatever it is coming up, paper due next, whatever the exact date is. So I have them do a week out because they can't see it like you can on paper, but then also like 2 days before, paper due, whatever. And then I have them have an alarm the morning of. Now, this is something we can help them do. Like as they're sitting down, they have their phone, you've got maybe the calendar's you've already written it all out. And so then you could say, okay, on X date, you need to say 1 week out history paper. Go through for all the subjects. Now, I'm not saying that you need to do this all at one sit down. Maybe do the paper calendar that first weekend of school. And then on the phone, go through that first month and get everything into the phone for the first month. And then be sure in a couple of weeks that maybe you pick one of the classes and go the rest of the semester through. And that you finish out doing all this organizational stuff. So then that's all finished. Keep track of what still needs to be done so that you be sure you go back. All right, so those are 2 things. So the third thing that I suggest that your student do is have a notebook and or a folder for each class. And I would color code it. Red for history, blue for math, green for science, whatever it is. Now, I would say get the pocket folders, and I would have the fold out tabs. What are those called? I don't know. For each class, because that's where they can put their homework in and any handouts. So that's what my kids take to class, or my own children. And then when they get home, they have a white 1-inch binder for each class, and they've color coded the end of it. So if science is green, they have a green folder, but then they color coded the end of that notebook green, and they wrote chemistry in green or whatever. So it's all matches. And that sounds really elementary, but you would be surprised how a lot of our kids are visual learners. I'm visual. Now a lot of kids have other learning styles, but visual is the biggest component for most of our kids. So be sure there is some kind of system. It could be a design. You have a certain design on, you've covered maybe you have an artsy student and they've covered their folders. I don't care what they do, but make sure they match. Now, our youngest son has a block schedule. They all did. So he does like to take his binders to school. So he takes the 2 or 3 binders for a day, then he brings them home and puts them on his desk, and then he takes the next day. So whatever works for your kid, let them do that. But make sure they figure out a system that is working. This is also a place where I always make sure my kids have Post-it notes. I did, as a teacher, I would pass out Post-it notes to all of my kids and say, okay, you have a test next Friday. Write that down. Test on, November 21st, 3rd hour. And then I'd make them put it in that folder. Now, if your kids don't have a teacher that does that, because I was a mom too, and I'm like, I know this helped my kids. Every time something was coming up, I would make sure that they knew in their phone and on their written calendar that stuff was coming up. So they're always working on things. Number 4 is whatever software your school uses to update the students, like at Schoology where we are. I know there's all kinds of different ones. There's Google Classroom, which is what we used where I taught the last couple years. Whatever platform your school uses, your child should be checking it at the least once a day. And honestly, I suggest that they check it twice a day, maybe once when they get to school for updates, for changes in assignments, to make sure they've turned everything in. And then again, maybe when they get home from school or right before bed to make sure they've checked everything off. I would suggest it maybe when they get home to remind themselves, okay, I've got to do this, this, and this tonight, rather than waiting till right before bed and then realizing, oh, I didn't do my history paragraph or whatever it is. So at least twice a day. And they need to be checking their school email at minimum once a day. And I would suggest that also being twice a day at those same times. First thing in the morning and right after school, because teachers send updates and they send reminders and they send encouragement, and they might send an extra reading, or they might say, hey, if you're finished with your work already, I'm giving extra credit if you'll do XYZ. So you never know what's going to be coming through there. Check the software, whatever the program is, and the emails. And then the 5th thing, and this is maybe one of the most important things, is to make sure that the space where your child works, whether it's on a table or a desk or wherever their work area is clean and organized. And this is something that I do for my kids, is I go by there occasionally, like, do they have enough pencils? Like, if I don't see pencils out or pens or whatever, I'll go grab some. I mean, I always have some upstairs. Do they have enough paper? A lot of things are done, online now, but I really encourage my boys to write things out on paper first, especially math and, brainstorming ideas. I check to make sure they have Post-its. I check to make sure they have highlighters. So these are things that you could do as a parent to help your child just sort of stay on top of things. So these 5 tips should help your student and you have a more successful school year, less stress, more success, and it takes a team. So work together and good luck. Talk to you next week.